Welcome
Thank you.
to the stage.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be with all of you, and I especially want to thank Jacob for bringing me here, and my wonderful hosts. We have about an hour to solve the mystery of existence, so I won't waste any time. Let's start with how you got here. So when you first entered this planet, or before you entered the planet, you were a fertilized egg. And that egg had 24,000 genes, half from your father, half from your mother. A gene is a stretch of DNA that codes for a protein. That's how life begins. The creation of proteins, because genes are like words that spell out proteins. The gene itself is composed of what we call DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And in the human genome, we have about 3 billion bits of nucleotides, DNA, that actually create the human genome. The alphabet of life is referred to as DNA. And there are 4 chemicals. To those who are not biologists, these alphabets can be spelled out as A, T, C, G. A stands for adenine, T for thymine, G for guanine, C for cytosine. So I know that Arabic has many alphabets, English has 26 alphabets, but life has only 4 alphabets, only 4 alphabets. Whether it's a human organism or a primate or a reptile or even a tree or a bacterium, only 4 alphabets compose all of life on this planet. So you say, well, what are these chemicals made of, the ATCG? They're made of atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. 96% of the atoms in your body are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. The remaining 4% are other elements from the periodic table, including iron, which goes into your hemoglobin, phosphorus, calcium in your bones. So you say, okay, so where did these atoms come from? We know that the atoms make nucleotides, the nucleotides make DNA, DNA makes genes, genes make proteins. But where did the atoms come from? The atoms were manufactured in the crucible of burning stars. So when a giant star starts to exhaust its thermonuclear energy, there is a process called fusion. And as hydrogen and helium start to fuse, you get heavier atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. As the star disappears into the singularity or black hole, it spills out these atoms. Now scientists tell us that, and by the way, when I say science, do remember, science does not have the privilege of giving us access to truth. Science only creates models of what we think the truth is. Okay. So science is not the ultimate authority. If you think science is the ultimate authority, then you're not a scientist. That is scientism. It's like a religion. But science is a methodology. It says, this is the theory, this is the experiment, this is the validation, this is the falsification. Theory, observation, experiment. Prediction of results. Not necessarily what the ultimate truth is. In any case, according to our current science, there are probably 2 trillion galaxies. And now we have a better idea because of the telescopes out there. in intergalactic space, 2 trillion galaxies, 700 sextillion stars, and uncountable trillions of planets. In fact, current estimates are that there are 60 billion habitable planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. Milky Way galaxy has 100 billion stars. So imagine 60 billion probable habitable planets. You say, how do you figure the habitable planets? Right now, what scientists do is they look at what are called biospheres, which are similar to ours. If the planet is too close to its sun, it's too hot, so no life as we know it. If a planet is too far away from its sun, it's too cold, so no life as we know it. But if it is within a certain range, which is now called the Goldilocks zone, and believe it or not, there are now astrobiologists in almost every major university in the United States anyway. So 60 billion habitable planets just in the Milky Way galaxy. And now it is estimated that the atoms in your body, 50% of them actually come from other galaxies, sucked into our galaxy by a phenomenon called gravitational wind. So where do you come from? You come from the total universe. This little biological organism that emerges as a baby is actually a package of the total universe, not only our galaxy, but all other galaxies. Okay, so we have 25,000 genes or 24,000 genes, and the cell starts to multiply. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, etc. This process is called morphogenesis, which means give rise to form, morphogenesis, and differentiation, how the one cell becomes everything: ears, nose, eyes, fingernails, genitalia, heart, liver, everything in your body is one cell. We now call these stem cells or pluripotential cells. So cells multiply, and ultimately you have a human baby, which is about 60 trillion cells, more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Along the way, from the one cell to a full human being, the appearance of the embryo actually replicates all of evolution. So you start looking like an insect in the beginning, then you look like a reptile, then you look like a mammal, then you look like a primate, and finally you emerge as a human being. 65% of your genes are the same as a banana. 70% of your genes are the same as a fruit fly. 80% of your genes are the same as a mouse. 99% of your genes are the same as a chimpanzee or a gorilla. 1% difference, and that 1% difference creates this biological organism, which is literally a stardust being with self-awareness. So today we are here to address what is the future evolution of humans, and I of course call this well-being, because well-being is not wellness. Wellness is, you know, when somebody goes to a doctor and they say your blood pressure is fine, your cholesterol is fine, you know, your blood sugar is okay, etc., etc. That's wellness. Well-being is a state of being, or state of consciousness, or state of awareness, where body, mind, and spirit and the universe are experienced as a unified activity in your own awareness. It's a state of flow with no resistance, no stress, a state of flow where there's spontaneous fulfillment of intention and self-organization and homeostasis and healing. So with that introduction, I'd like to share with you some slides that I've prepared for you, and I prepared these because this is the prevailing conversation that is happening in the scientific world. What is reality? We assume reality is what we see, or what we perceive through our 5 senses. We'll go a little deeper because that is called perceptual reality, not fundamental reality. The idea that your body is thinking. You know, when I started my career as a physician, I was taught that the brain is the source of all thought. And I convinced myself that, you know, as most scientists do, that the brain is the source of all experience and the source of all thought. And as we began to explore, me as an endocrine fellow, we realized that if you think of thought as impulses of energy and information, then your entire body is actually a brain. It's not just here. Here it thinks in English with an Indian accent. But actually, your entire body is a self-regulating system regulated by impulses of energy and information. And now we are dealing with the fundamental fact that the source of all existence of every biological organism, every planet, every universe, or every starscape is actually infinite, incomprehensible, irreducible, fundamental, seemingly without cause, beyond space and time. And so as we explore this is what you're going to be seeing in the near future as the main discussion in science. So if you go on the internet and you type out what are the most unsolved mysteries of the universe, what are the open questions in science, the first open question in science today is, what is the universe made of? Now I'm not going to go into details because I could spend a week talking to you about this current cosmological models, but the bottom line is that the universe is made of nothing. It's a zero-sum game. It's a free lunch. And the second most important question in science today is, what is consciousness, and is it fundamental in the universe? Is the universe itself a conscious biological organism, just like your body? So everything that we took for granted in the past through mechanistic Newtonian science is being questioned. And to tell you the truth, cutting edge science today is also questioning the implications of quantum physics and relativity. So once again, if you go on Wikipedia and you type out what are the interpretations of quantum physics. So quantum physics, as you know, is a mathematical structure. It is used for calculations, and all our technology today depends on quantum physics or quantum mechanics. Whether you use the internet or you watch Instagram, all these technologies are possible because of the mathematics of quantum mechanics. But when you look at the interpretation of quantum physics, there are now 35 interpretations. Go and you can check this out if you want. When you have 35 interpretations of a science, then you start to worry what's going on. Does anybody actually know what is happening? So given that, I want to share with you first our own biological well-being, and then go a little deeper into the future of well-being as it pertains not only to our physical well-being but also to our spiritual well-being. Only 5% of disease-related mutations are fully penetrant. So let me explain what that means. These days everybody has heard the word mutation. COVID-19, Delta variant, this variant, every few months there's a new mutation. So mutation is a mistake, it's an error from the normal sequence of DNA. The nucleotide A, T, C, G, remember I told you the alphabet, so one alphabet might be missing, or there may be an extra alphabet, or it may be upside down, etc., etc. So think of mutations as spelling mistakes in the gene that spell out abnormal proteins leading to disease. Of these mutations, only 5% or less, maybe 4%, are fully penetrant. What do we mean by penetrant? Penetrant means that they predict the disease. Only less than 5% of disease-related gene mutations predict the disease. So if somebody has, say, a BRCA gene, you might have heard of BRCA gene. Angelina Jolie had the BRCA gene, which predicts breast cancer. And so she had to have a preventive mastectomy because she would have had breast cancer if she hadn't. For that now, there are new technologies being created, things like CRISPR, gene editing. So in the next less than 5 years, gene editing will be available. So you'll be able to read the barcode of a gene, just like you read your email. You'll be able to delete the defective gene and insert the right gene. And so you say all disease should be curable. Unfortunately, that's not true. Less than 5% of diseases are due to fully penetrant gene mutations. The rest are modifiable by what we call lifestyle. And the new science today, even more important than genes, is what we call epigenetics. The word epi means above, so epigenetic means above the genome, and above the genome is a sheet of proteins called histones. DNA is wrapped around that, and epigenetics is a mechanism of modulating gene activity based on how you're feeling, how you're experiencing everything from eating to breathing to digestion to metabolism to elimination to thoughts to feelings to imagination to instincts to drives to yearnings to longings to moods. Every moment your genes are being regulated in their activity depending on how you're feeling about your life at the moment. So think of a computer above this room, a master computer, and it is regulating all the electrical appliances in this room, including my iWatch, the monitor there, all these lights, television sets, anything that has an electrical appliance, microwave, oven, etc. Depending on what you need, the computer, the master computer above this building regulates the electrical appliances. So too, there is something that we call awareness or consciousness, where you are experiencing what we call life, and depending on how you're feeling, this consciousness, which is a master computer, is switching genes on and off and regulating their activity. So it's not just the genes, but which genes are turned on, which genes are turned off. And so this is how our journey of existence begins, but as we come into the world, we also acquire about 2 million extra genes, depending on where we live. And these genes are in our gut, in our stomach, in our skin, in all the orifices of our body, and these genes are referred to as the microbiome. Microbiome. Micro because these genes are bacterial genes. So once again, you have about 24,000 human genes, but you have 2 million, and in some cases, depending on where you live, if you live in, say, the Amazon, which is unpolluted, you might have 20 million extra genes. And so these bacterial genes which are in your gut, they interact with your human genes to regulate your metabolism. And a healthy body is one where there is perfect regulation between your bacterial genes and human genes and your metabolism. Now these are the 7 pillars, I should say 6 pillars for now, that regulate our genetic activity. And they're not necessarily in order of importance. I don't have a monitor, so I started at 7, right? Started at, what time did we start? What time is it now? Am I halfway through? I'm halfway through, okay. So these are the 6 activities that regulate your metabolism. We need 8 hours of sleep, 90 minutes deep sleep, 90 minutes dream state. Every biological organism sleeps, except human beings who have disrupted their sleep. And lack of sleep or dysfunctional sleep is responsible now is the #1 cause of premature death from heart disease and cardiovascular accidents. Lack of sleep is also the #1 cause of Alzheimer's. And therefore, it is very important to monitor sleep every day, and everything that I'm talking about is now measurable through technology. So you can measure your sleep, you can measure how many hours it was dream, what your heart rate variability was, how your endocrine system, your immune system was responding to your sleep, and it becomes very easy now to actually not only monitor these things, but begin to regulate them through the future that we'll be seeing through deep learning systems and through artificial intelligence. The second thing I mentioned here is meditation and stress management. And stress management, of course, people manage their stress through music and poetry and reading. Reading is actually reading for pleasure without an end goal in mind is probably one of the best ways to manage stress. And so I congratulate the book fair here for managing everybody's stress by giving them so much variety to read. But the most reliable way to manage stress is through what we call meditation. And there's a lot of confusion in the world right now on what we mean by meditation. Because meditation includes things like mindfulness, but it also includes things like inquiry, self-inquiry, it includes things like transcendence, mantra practice, breathing techniques, etc. But when we look at meditation, movement, yoga, and breathing techniques, now we know that these techniques activate a part of your nervous system which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system. So right now in science we are focused mostly on what we call the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is what makes you dynamic. It is the system that gets activated when you need to do something. But when you have sympathetic overdrive, which means your sympathetic nervous system is out of control, then what happens is you get what we call stress. And stress is the perception of threat, whether psychological threat or emotional threat or financial threat, any kind of threat. If you perceive stress, your sympathetic nervous system will go out of control, and that leads to things like high blood pressure, sticky platelets, inflammation, and compromises your immune system, makes you more susceptible to not only heart disease but diabetes and cancer and autoimmune illness. And in this pandemic, it was actually the people who had sympathetic overdrive that were really getting sick. So the elderly people who were getting sick during the pandemic, they already had some chronic disease, but also stress. But the younger people who were getting sick, and some of the younger people who were dying, they all had what we call cytokine storms. Their body was flooded with inflammation, and not only did they have inflammation, but they had depression and severe anxiety as well. So when you have sympathetic overdrive, then your body goes out of control and it gets sick. The counter to sympathetic overdrive is what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. And in the parasympathetic nervous system is actually a nerve which is known as the vagus nerve. Vagus is a Latin word, but it's related to the English word vagabond. So vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It influences your facial muscles, so you can look at a person and say, is he happy, is she sad, is they frustrated, are they in a good mood? We have 43 facial muscles and we have 150 facial expressions. They express our moods. The vagus nerve, after it interacts with the facial nerve, also interacts with the oculomotor nerve, influences your eye movements. And you can tell by looking to somebody's eyes if they are tired, if they are frustrated, if they have a hangover, if they are telling the truth, etc. Vagus nerve then influences the tone of your voice. And again, through voice analysis these days, you can tell the mood. And you can correlate the mood with heart rate variability, endocrine system, hormones, and self-regulation, and immune system. As the vagus nerve goes from here, it goes into your lungs and the heart, as I mentioned, but it also increases the depth of your breathing, slows down your breathing and increases what we call abdominal breathing, and then it penetrates the diaphragm and causes the regulation of every organ in our body, including the microbiome, which is the 2 million extra genes that you have. In other words, the vagus nerve is the healing nerve in our body. And while we know through science and through technology and through AI that the activation of the vagus nerve happens when we practice meditation and when we practice movement in yoga or any of the martial arts like Tai Chi, Qigong, and all these mind-body practices, they bring about healing by stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. In the year 2012, our foundation, the Chopra Foundation, actually worked with Harvard University and also with UCSF and Duke University, NYU, Mount Sinai, and we published a paper in the journal, the British journal Nature, which showed that in a one-week meditation retreat, all the genes that are responsible for self-regulation or healing went up, some 17-fold. All the genes that were associated with things like autoimmune illness, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer went down. The level of the enzyme telomerase, which regulates our biological clock, or the length of time we have on this planet, the level of the enzyme went up by 40%. And one of the investigators in the study was Elizabeth Blackburn, who actually discovered the enzyme telomerase. So this was a landmark study which showed that meditation, yoga, breathing techniques, mind-body coordination actually changes your gene activity in the direction of healing and also regulates your biological clock for a healthy, long life, extending your lifespan, but also your health span. That study has now been replicated by many other institutions, so there's no controversy about that study anymore. Meditation helps regulate your gene activity so that it brings about self-regulation and healing. Emotions. We have two kinds of emotions. One when we are traumatized, and the other when we feel connected to life. So any time you have trauma, and trauma seems to be universal. These days especially, trauma is universal. There's trauma in nations and war and terrorism, there's childhood trauma, there's intergenerational trauma. Trauma results in the emotion that we call anger. Anger is the memory of trauma. Hostility is the desire to get even. Guilt is when you direct the trauma to yourself. And as a result of guilt, there's shame, humiliation, and ultimately the sum total of all this is the depletion of energy that we call depression. Today, depression is the #1 pandemic, more than even stress. Every 40 seconds, somebody in the world is dying from suicide. In the West, I know, in the United States now, suicide is the second most common cause of death amongst teenagers. So during the pandemic, we deployed what we call an emotional AI named PV, and we gave the name PV to this emotional AI, or artificial intelligence chatbot, because of a recording artist in our ecosystem who had died from suicide. But now we use the name PV as an acronym for personalized interaction with intention. And PV, as I speak to you right now, has prevented 6,000 suicide ideations. She's talking to 20 million people simultaneously. And it is my hope that we can bring PV and translate her into Arabic, into Urdu, into Farsi, into Spanish, because unfortunately our teens are more comfortable talking to a machine than they are to a human being. And the reason is they don't feel judged. They don't feel judged by a machine. They sometimes feel judged even by therapists. So when we have depression, anxiety, fear, it leads to inflammation, and it's all measurable. Again, everything I'm speaking about is measurable. There's no experience that is not measurable, either as a biological correlate, or as a correlate in the brain, or in the immune system, or the endocrine system. The other side of emotion is the emotional well-being. Emotional well-being starts with what we call empathy. Empathy means you feel what another person feels. The most empathetic species are not humans, they're mammals. Your pets, your dog, your cat has more empathy than human beings, because we are so outwardly directed. A newborn baby or a baby before it's been programmed by our society has immense empathy. If you hurt an animal in front of a baby, the baby will start crying, because the baby feels viscerally what the animal is feeling or what another person is feeling. So empathy is feeling what another person feels. Compassion is the result of empathy. Compassion is the desire to alleviate suffering. And if compassion leads to love, that is the highest form of healing. When there's a relationship between the healer and the healee, where there is empathy, compassion, and love, there is a phenomenon that occurs in the brain called limbic resonance. So we have three types of brain. One is the reptilian brain, which is, this would be a nice handy model of the brain. So reptilian brain is responsible for fight or flight. The emotional brain connects us with other people, and then we have an intellectual brain. When there is a relationship that has empathy, compassion, and love, there's a phenomenon that occurs called limbic resonance, or the emotional brain of the healer and the one who's being healed, they start to resonate. Limbic resonance leads to something called limbic regulation. The healer's brain starts to regulate the limbic brain of the person being healed, and finally there's a phenomenon called limbic revision. The neural networks get rewired, and that's actually now the biological correlate of how we say love heals. It's been said throughout the ages in all the wisdom traditions that love is the highest healing, and now we know that biologically love is the highest healing. So emotions that connect us to each other heal, emotions that disconnect us to each other cause disease. Now, as a practicing physician, when I was told by my patients in the past, I changed my diet and my heart disease got reversed, or I changed my diet and my arthritis went away, or I changed my diet and my cancer went into remission. Honestly, I did not believe my patients because I had no basis, no scientific basis for understanding how that could happen. But today, we know very clearly that when you put food in your mouth, the first thing it interacts with is the 2 million genes in your body called the microbiome. So if your diet is manufactured, refined, processed, has antibiotics, has inflammatory products, has steroids, has hormones, that causes in our gut microbiome something called dysbiosis, inflammation of the genes in our gut. And that causes inflammation of the human genes and an inflamed metabolism that leads to disease. So if genes are the software of your body and the body is your printout, then if you can change the software, you can actually heal the body. The healthiest diet is a diet that has maximum diversity of plant-based foods. Plant-based foods with maximum diversity have 7 colors of the rainbow and 6 tastes of life. So all the 7 colors of the rainbow and the 6 tastes of life: sweet, sour, salt, bitter, pungent, astringent. And if you have these ingredients, even subjectively, then you have the highest concentration in your diet of something called phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are micronutrients that are derived directly from the energy of the sun. So we know now that all life on our planet depends on the sun. And photosynthesis, which is plants capture the energy of the sun, convert it into phytochemicals, and these are the most intelligent nutrients that you can have. So people ask, what about meat? What about poultry? What about fish? As long as it's not coming from a factory, you're okay, unless you overdo it. Meat that is produced in a factory that has chemicals, meat that comes from animals that have been treated in a cruel manner, meat that has steroids and inflammatory products and hormones, is also going to create dysbiosis. So in all the studies that we have seen now through meta-analysis, you can change your genetic population, 99% of your genes, just by changing your diet to a diet which has maximum diversity of plant-based foods and all the micronutrients that I've been talking about, including the phytochemicals. Number 6 here is something we call biological rhythms. So there are 4 rhythms in our body. The first rhythm is called circadian rhythm. It occurs as the result of the planet moving on its own axis. In a 24-hour period, our biological clocks change, and we have biological clocks that match the rotation of the earth. Everyone who has traveled is familiar with something called jet lag. Jet lag is a disruption of circadian rhythms. But we have other rhythms in our body, including what we call seasonal rhythms, as the earth goes around the sun. We have gravitational rhythms as the effects of the stars and the sun and the moon on our oceans, but your body is 70% ocean too. So you have gravitational rhythms. You have lunar rhythms as a result of the movement of the sun and the moon and the earth in relationship to each other. When you make contact with nature, if you go into a forest or desert actually, and you touch the ground or you touch a tree, you can get connected to the earth, and when you're connected to the earth, your circadian rhythms get reset. And once your circadian rhythms get reset, the other rhythms also synchronize, the lunar rhythms, the seasonal rhythms and the gravitational rhythms, because they're all correlated. In other words, the universe is like a symphony and your body is part of the symphony. Even though you can't hear the tune, your body dances to the symphony of the universe because you came from the universe. And so the healthiest body would be where your biological rhythms are perfectly synchronized with universal rhythms. That would be the state of least entropy and the most powerful thing you could do to delay aging. So right now there are new technologies actually that are emerging where you can take an electrical wire, connect your mattress or your pillow to the earth through the grounding wire, and you could be in the Empire State Building on the 30th floor and still connected to the earth. So as I live in New York, when I sleep, I use one of these devices to ground me and connect me to the earth, even though I'm living in a building which is high-rise. So as you can see, our technologies are actually reinforcing what we already know, that we are not separate from the universe, that the universe and we are one phenomenon in every level, from microcosm at the cellular level to our body organs, to our whole biology, and ultimately even to a social ecosystem. So these are the 6 most important pillars for what we call mind-body healing. And as I said, everything I've mentioned so far is measurable. We are now working at our foundation with artificial intelligence and with VR and with augmented reality and immersive experiences in the metaverse. So actually, I predict in the next decade, when you go to see a doctor, you won't be getting a pharmaceutical, you'll be getting a digiceutical. And the digiceutical will be actually information and energy that regulates your biology through stimulation of the vagus nerve or through self-regulation of the body through homeostasis and decreasing inflammation. I know this sounds futuristic, but it's already here. The future of well-being is very precise, is very personalized, is predictable, is preventable, but it requires your participation and it's a process. Okay, now that we've covered this, I want to address the 7th pillar, which here is called self-awareness and self-realization. So self-realization, I should just tell you, is not the same thing as self-improvement. Okay, self-improvement is upgrading every phenomenon in your body. Self-realization, on the other hand, is realizing who you really are. Who you really are. So, in the beginning, I mentioned the 2 most fundamental questions being asked in science today. And what are the 2 most fundamental questions being asked in science? Number 1, what is the universe made of? And number 2, what's the biological basis of consciousness? And you know, this struggle has been going on for several thousand years. It's not something new, even though we talk about it in modern terms. The problem has existed throughout the ages, since Plato in the West, and of course every other philosopher who has looked at the meaning of existence has questioned the following. Is there something beyond our body? Is there something beyond our mind? When spiritual traditions say we have a soul, is there such a thing called soul? Where is it? What happens to us after we die? Where do we come from? Is there a higher intelligence? These are questions human beings have asked for thousands of years. And today there is a deep discussion both in scientific circles and in philosophical circles on the fundamental nature of reality. So a few years ago I was at a conference at MIT, and everybody in the conference, mathematicians, physicists, scientists, what they were talking about was, what is the nature of the universe? What is the universe ultimately made of? You would say it's made of what we know: force fields, stars, galaxies, atoms, molecules. But there was one mathematician at this conference who said, there is no universe. Everybody stopped. Says the universe is a human construct for sensations and perceptions in human consciousness. And this actually led to a very lengthy, elaborate discussion on how we perceive reality. So if I asked you, what is this? You would say, this is a clicker. If I asked you, what is this? This is a hand. If I asked you, what's that? You'd say, it's a screen. Those are human constructs for human sensations in human consciousness. First of all, this is a very species-specific experience. What you're experiencing right now is a human experience. It's not the experience of a snake navigating reality through infrared, or an insect looking at the world with 100 eyes, or a bat that experiences the world as the echo of ultrasound. So, what does the universe really look like? And the answer is, there's no such thing. It depends on who's looking, what kind of instrument they have, which we call a brain, and what is the species of consciousness that is looking at the universe. A baby, if it was looking at this, would have no idea that this is a clicker. Its only experience of this would be sensation, smell, sound, taste, texture. And then we tell the baby, this is a clicker. The combination of sensations now becomes a clicker. Combination of sensations becomes a body, a hand, a building. In other words, we construct the universe by giving meaning to sensations: sound, touch, sight, taste, smell, and the interpretation of these experiences is what we call thoughts and feelings and images. All experience that we have is only four things: sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. The rest is a construction. You say, that's a tree, that's a giraffe, that's a camel, that's the Milky Way galaxy, that's a screen. Those are human constructs to modalities of sensations and experiences, which in turn are modifications of consciousness. In other words, what we call the physical universe is the appearance of consciousness as it self-regulates through modes of knowing and experience. So a while back, I heard this statement from Wittgenstein, the German philosopher, who said, our life is a dream. We are asleep. Once in a while we wake up enough to know that we are dreaming. The Buddha said the same thing. He said, this lifetime of ours is transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movement of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. If I asked you right now, what happened to your childhood? You would say it's a dream. If I asked you what happened to your teenage years, you would say it's a dream. But if I asked you what happened to yesterday, I think you would acknowledge it's a dream. What happened to this morning? It's a dream. What happened to 5 minutes ago when you came into this room, or 20 minutes ago when you came up? It's not there anymore. It's a dream. What happens to these words? By the time you hear them, they don't exist. So in fact, what we call everyday reality is a perceptual constructed dream in a vivid now, in a vivid now. Vivid now means you are dreaming this experience right now, and it's ungraspable, because as soon as you try to grasp it, it moves on. How do we create this reality? Direct experience is just what I just told you. Sensations, images, feelings and thoughts. Everything else is a construction. When we give meaning to shapes and colors and forms, they become objects. When we give meaning to sound, it becomes language or music. When we give meaning to sensation, it becomes texture. When we give meaning to what we call taste, it becomes flavor. When we give meaning to smell, it becomes fragrance or odor. So perception is a learned phenomenon. When a baby comes into this world, it is taught perception. Even in animals, perception is a recycling of old learning, ancestral learning. There was an experiment that was done in 1962 when I was still a medical student, where scientists took a group of kittens and they brought them up in a room that had only horizontal stripes. And when these kittens grew up to be cats, one group of cats could see only a horizontal world. Another group of cats could see only a vertical world. Is the world horizontal? Is the world vertical? When these cats, their brains were examined, one group of cats had connections between neurons only to see a horizontal world. The other group of cats could only see a vertical world because the brain did not allow any other stimuli. So too, we learn to perceive. When we come into this world, we are given a name, we are given an identity. This is your religion, this is your culture, this is your history. And all that is in your genes. Right now, I can't even move my body or give this speech. All my ancestors are here. All my ancestors since the beginning of time are in every cell of my body as my genetic activity. My human ancestors, my animal ancestors, my plant ancestors, even my microbial ancestors are living in me right now. But then what happens is, this identity that we assume becomes our reality, and it colors what we call fundamental reality, which is a field of infinite possibilities. A consciousness which is not in space-time, a consciousness that is literally infinite, a consciousness that has infinite creativity, a consciousness that is self-regulating, a consciousness that is evolving, a consciousness that is synchronistic, and a consciousness that cannot be seen because it is formless. And because it is formless, it has no boundaries. And because it has no boundaries, it is infinite. Now we can call it anything, you know, and religious traditions have given names to this infinite consciousness. Allah, Brahman, Ein Sof, ultimate reality, beyond space-time, non-local. But this consciousness is constantly modifying itself into what we call sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, and then as humans we give language to it and we construct what we call our everyday reality, including the experience of our body, of our mind, and of the universe. Giving meaning to sensations and creating perceptions results in the emotions, a generation of emotions and thoughts also. And the story we create is the story that we call mind, body, and universe. They are human constructs, they are projections, they are dreams, they are illusions, and when we take them for reality because we are embedded in them. Our body-mind is part of the illusion. The body-mind is part of the fictional character in a collective dreamscape. And all perceptions are inaccurate. All perceptions are wrong. My perception tells me the earth is flat. Nobody believes that anymore. My perception tells me that the ground I'm standing on or walking on is stationary, and I know it's spinning at dizzying speeds and hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour. My perception tells me this body is solid, but it's proportionately as void as intergalactic space. If you could see things as they really are, including my body, you'd see a huge emptiness with a few scattered dots and spots and some random electrical discharges. But it appears like this. And it creates what we call everyday reality. Once we know the trick behind, then we are free to construct reality. As we look at the different religious traditions in the world, doesn't matter, Islam, Sufism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, the essential experience is the same. Essential experience is the same. I'm not talking about dogma, I'm not talking about rules and regulations, I'm talking about the actual experience. Three components. One is you discover your soul and you realize that it does not exist in space or time. Two, as a result of this connection to the universe, you have the emergence of what are called Platonic values: truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. And number three, you lose the fear of death. This is the universal experience in every tradition. So these days, you know, this very fashionable, at least in the United States, people say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Well, it's the same thing. Spiritual experience and religious experience is the same thing. It is transcendence, it is truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, it is loss of the fear of death. So now before we go there, I just want to mention these are emerging words that you will hear in the literature if you follow the literature. And these emerging words are quantum entanglement. This year the Nobel Prize was given to physicists who basically said everything in the universe is connected to everything in the universe. Everything is connected to everything. Qualia, the qualities of our experience are connected to the qualities of every other experience. You can't have an experience by yourself. Your mind is embodied and a relational process. Meaning, when we give meaning commonly to a sensation, it becomes our reality. And ultimately, this results in the metabolism of experience that we call the body-mind. Now, without going into many details, I just want to give you some examples. So, how many people can see a young woman sitting in front of a mirror? How many people can see a skull? So what is it? It's neither. It's colors. Color, shape and form go together. Without color, shape and form, there's no experience of objects. So, you know, what is the difference between my shoe and my pants and the floor? Color. That's all there is. A baby would see only color till you told the baby this is a shoe. How many people see two faces looking at each other in a jar? Young woman or a man playing a bugle. So this is called entanglement of meaning. All there is color. You are constructing the perception. How many people can see a mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law all in the same picture? A man riding a horse or an old man with a beard? Butterflies landing on a flower or a young woman's face? Birds returning to their nest or the face of a woman? horses against a background of mountains, sky, or a woman with long hair locks. So I like to use this as my favorite slide. It's inspired by the great visionary poet William Blake. And in one of his poems he says, "We are led to believe a lie when we see with and not through the eye that was born in a night to perish in a night while the soul slept in beams of light." Again, the Wittgenstein quote, "We are asleep, our life is a dream, but once in a while we wake up enough to know that we are dreaming." And that is the quest, that is the spiritual quest of humanity. Those dragons that you see, that face that you see, are not in the picture. They are constructions of the mind. And the face that appears in this picture, if you look very carefully, is not there. And so too, everything we perceive is not there. We are the consciousness that conceives, governs, constructs, and becomes everything that we call reality. And ultimately, the only truth is you and the universe are not separate. You and the universe are the matrix of existence. There's an ancient phrase in India in Sanskrit, "Yatha pinde, tatha brahmande." As is the atom, so is the universe. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the human mind, a derivative of the cosmic mind. As is the human body, the cosmic body. So we have started to do some research on this, and when people go through our retreats and we actually look deeply into what is happening, we find that they stop being reactive. They pause. They observe their reaction to react. They become non-judgmental. They accept themselves and others as they are. They have divine attitudes, loving kindness, compassion, gratitude, equanimity. They know how to tune into the wisdom of their body. They know how to transcend thought and experience themselves as an awareness that is not subject to birth or death, that lives outside of space and time, and they experience what is called metacognition. Meta means beyond, so metacognition, to be a witness to both inner and outer reality as it happens. I'm not very fond of the word mindfulness. It's misleading. The word mindfulness suggests a full mind. It is awareness. Awareness of sensations, images, feelings and thoughts and interpretations that leads to an experience we call seeing. Seeing is beyond perception. A person perceives, only a seer can see. And when the seer sees, he, she sees only infinity. There is only infinity. There is only the infinite modifying itself as finite expressions. So as we wake up from waking, dreaming, deep sleep, there is something called soul consciousness. Let me give you a brief glimpse of that. So far, have you found this interesting? Can you be a little more enthusiastic? Good. Okay, let me ask you the same question. Please listen to my instruction very carefully. Somebody or the other usually doesn't listen carefully. So listen to my instruction very carefully. I'm going to ask you the same question, which is, did you find the lecture interesting? But don't answer it till I raised my hand. Everybody understood? Okay? Then you can say yes. Did you find this lecture interesting? So the question is a thought. The answer is a thought. Who is having the thought is in between. We call it the soul. Okay? So now I'm going to ask you the same question. Don't answer it. Slip into that which is listening. Instead of looking at me or listening to me, slip into that which is listening. Do it now. Be aware of that which is listening. This presence is soul, is spirit. It was there when you were a baby. Different body, different mind, different emotions, same presence. It was there when you were a teenager. It's there now, and because it's not in space-time, it is not subject to birth or death. Death is a human construct for a false identity. I'm a body, I'm a mind. No, I'm a spirit, an awareness that is projecting the experience of a changing body, mind and world. The great Sufi poet Rumi, he said, God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. So if you carry this presence where you go, it will be your ticket to freedom. Soul consciousness leads to cosmic consciousness, connection with cosmic consciousness, divine consciousness, and ultimately you realize it is the same awareness modifying itself as infinite beings, infinite knowers, infinite modes of knowing. This is what I like to call meta-reality, not the metaverse of, what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg, but the ultimate metaverse, which is a field of infinite possibilities, formless, without cause, irreducible, infinite, fundamental, infinitely creative, unfolds through synchronicity, is the source of all attention and intention. It is free of its modifications. It is self-organizing, self-regulating, self-evolving, and rooted in the name of I am. Not I am Deepak Chopra. I am Deepak Chopra is the selfie. I am is the self. When Moses asked God, what's your name? God says, I am. I am that I am. This is who we are. And getting to this is ultimately the purpose of our existence, is to find out who we are. A shift in the sense of self, from body, mind to spirit. A shift in emotions, from separation to unity. A shift in cognition to creative thinking. A shift in perception to present moment perception. A shift in memory. We use memories, but we are not victimized by memories. Insight, inner vision, intuition, a form of intelligence that is holistic, that is relational, that is beyond cause-effect, that eavesdrops on the cosmic mind. Creativity, the ability to create something that never existed before. Flow, the opposite of stress. Spontaneous fulfillment of desire and the loss of the fear of death. So with that, I'd like to take you through a short meditation, and we're doing perfectly fine with this concept that we call time. Okay, so please sit comfortably, uncross your legs, put your feet firmly on the ground, keep your hands open and close your eyes. And please observe your breath. This is the breath of the spirit. The spirit manifests as breath, and without breath there is no life. So as you observe your breath, you're experiencing the sensation which we call spirit or awareness. Now bring your awareness to your heart. Keep your eyes closed. Bring your awareness to your heart and ask yourself, who am I? What am I? Who am I? What am I? Am I the changing body, or am I the consciousness in which the body is a changing experience? Don't try to answer the question, it will come to you. Am I the changing body, or am I the awareness, the consciousness, the spirit in which the changing body is an experience? Now go to the next question. What do I want? What do I want from my life? Please don't answer the question. Let it come to you. A sensation, an image, a feeling, or a thought. What do I want from my life? Just be aware of any sensation, any image, any feeling, any thought. What do I want? Third question. What is my purpose? Why do I exist? Do not try to answer the question. Allow it to come. What is my purpose? Why do I exist? Allowing any sensation, any image, any feeling, any thought to come to you. Why do I exist? What is my purpose? Fourth question. What am I grateful for? Gratitude will open the door to your soul. What am I grateful for? Allowing any sensation, any image, any feeling, any thought to come to you. What am I grateful for? Now we'll go a little deeper into the meditation. So just be aware of any sound that you hear, including the sound of my voice, but any sound. Notice, sound comes, you hear it, then it disappears before the next sound. Be aware of sound. And mentally tell yourself, I am the presence, I am the spirit in which every sound is heard. I am the presence, I am the spirit, I am the awareness in which every sound is heard. Now touch one hand with the other and stroke it. And remind yourself, I am the presence in which every sensation is experienced. I am the presence in which every sensation is experienced. Now open your eyes and just look around you at these beautiful colors, shapes, people. And remind yourself, I am the presence in which everything is seen. Close your eyes. Generate some saliva. Taste the saliva. Taste the back of your teeth, the roof of your mouth. I am the spirit in which everything is taste. Bring your hands to your nose, smell your own skin. Remind yourself, I am the presence in which every fragrance, every odor appears. Close your eyes again. This time we are going deeper. Let's play with imagination. Imagine a beautiful sunset on the ocean. Imagine a red rose. Imagine a desert. Imagine a beautiful meadow, an oasis. Imagine a rainbow. And remind yourself, I am the presence in everything that is imagined. I am the presence in which everything is imagined. Now let's go a little deeper. So let's evoke an emotion. So with your eyes closed, think of someone that you love and bring their awareness into your heart. Could be your child, could be your parent, could be your significant other. Bring the presence of a being that you love into your heart. Feel the emotion. And as you feel the emotion, remind yourself, I am the presence in every emotion that I generate. I am the awareness. I am the spirit. Now ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. I wonder what my, and then wait for your next thought to come. When you wait for a thought, it takes its time. But as the thought comes, remind yourself, I am the presence, I am the spirit in which thoughts arise and subside like clouds in the sky. I am the presence in which thoughts come and go. Now let your awareness go beyond the boundaries of your skin. Let your awareness spread out beyond your skin into this beautiful city of Sharjah and then beyond. Let your awareness spread beyond this city to the planet. Let it spread from the planet to the solar system. Let your awareness go beyond the solar system into the Milky Way galaxy, to the universe. Be aware of the stars, of the moon, of the sun, of the galaxies. And remind yourself, I am the presence in which every experience occurs in the total universe. I am present. Okay, now bring your awareness back into your body and just repeat your name. I am Deepak, I am Miriam, I am Abdullah. And as you repeat your name, remind yourself, that's my name, that's not who I am. That's my name. So drop your name and just repeat the words, I am, with no name, no form, no memory, no story. I am. Now if you want, you can replace I am with the sound, with the mantra. Mantra is just vibration. So instead of saying I am, say aham. Aham. If your mind wanders, just come back to aham. And we'll do this for at least 2 minutes, so please don't mind the time. Just keep repeating aham. Vibration. And now stop even the mantra, let it go and rest in your spirit, rest in your awareness, rest in your presence. We have arrived at the source, which is presence, awareness. Just rest in awareness. Awareness has no shape, no color, no form. It is not 5 years old or 100 years old. It doesn't occupy a location in space or time, but it is who we are. So rest in the presence of being, of existence, of awareness. This presence is not subject to birth or death. Water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot destroy it, fire cannot burn it. It is ancient. It is before the beginning of the universe. So just rest in the presence of infinity. Your body, your mind, and the world is a projection. To finish the meditation, feel your body from the inside out, and put the intention in your body, joyful, energetic body. Joyful, energetic body. Now bring your awareness to your heart and put the intention, loving, compassionate heart. Loving, compassionate heart. Now bring your awareness to your third eye between your eyebrows. And the intention, quiet, creative mind. Quiet, creative mind. And once again now, let your awareness go beyond the boundaries of your skin with the intention, lightness of spirit, lightness of being, lightness, free as the wind and beyond. Finally, feel your body, relax into your body, and you can gently open your eyes. I thank you very much for this evening. Carry this presence wherever you go.